Oh, there we
girlfriend's
go.
calling it Fluff Dog Millionaire.
Fluff Dog Millionaire. I like
Yeah.
that.
So that's why the hat has to.
Got it.
I've also learned that the backwards hat is key to get the light on the face.
Right.
It's not that I'm that I don't understand that I'm not 39 years old. That I understand. It's just Fluff Dog Millionaire that comes out, and it's crazy. Oh, I also started. I've got a little Modelo.
I'm going to go with my Erewhon, like $22 bottle of mineral water.
Great call. Modelo. I've been thinking about that first sip since about 5:45 this morning.
Nice.
Okay. That's going to be bad content. And welcome to the Run Local podcast. Of course, the Run Local podcast, it's where we invite guests across the spectrum of society, including elite athletes, entrepreneurs, local legends, and beyond. We utilize the sport of running to learn more about these individuals, their local community, and what they're doing to change the world. We believe in the power of movement and doing the doable at a local level. So unlike other podcasts, you will get an opportunity to jump between a myriad of hosts, including Josh Muxon, he's the voice of Run Local Events, Jimmy Coleman, the voice of Nitro Circus, and once in a while, myself, JT Service, the founder of Run Local. Today, it is me, lonely me, but we have a fantastic guest that will keep the energy going. His name is Peter Abraham. Peter, welcome to the Run Local podcast.
Thank you, JT. Glad to be here. What are we going to talk about today?
Oh my gosh, I have like a whole laundry list that I wrote out on my Evernote, and then I'm gonna quickly derail from that at every single opportunity to dig into the fun stuff.
I'm here to help.
I love it. So Peter, I've got to know you over the last few years from a brand and marketing and content strategist, but I'd love to know how you think of yourself to describe to our audience who might not know you, what the heck you've been up to for the last 30 years and why the world and endurance sports has come to revel in your genius around brand and marketing. That's how I see it.
I would not say genius. I never use that.
Okay. Well, I did.
So it's a great question. I get asked that often. I think at heart, I'm a storyteller. You know, I started out after I went to UCLA, and I went there to study film production, and graduated and went right into the film business and produced television commercials and movies for almost 20 years. Along the way, you know, I've always been a really passionate outdoor athlete, not fast, but passionate, whether it's running or bike racing or surfing. And I you know, as the world was changing in 2004, 2005, 2006, I could see digital really kind of, you know, blogs were happening, Facebook was starting to happen, and I was fascinated by what was going on with technology. So I decided I needed my own kind of case study. So I started a running event, and I had run in dozens, maybe hundreds of 5Ks, 10Ks, marathons, etc. So I had a feel for, you know, what the customer would want, and I could tell it was all changing. So I started my own running event in Santa Monica, which grew really fast, and I got Nike and Red Bull in there as sponsors. So I learned a lot from them. Wow. I'd be in the office like every, you know, every other day. Hey, what are you guys doing over there? I was still my day job producing television commercials to pay the rent, but I learned so much about marketing. And so I was basically giving myself a graduate degree in kind of new marketing because it was all changing, reading a lot of Seth Godin, et cetera. And then I sold that event to the owner of the LA Marathon, who was at the time, still is actually Frank McCourt, who owned the Dodgers. And I became the chief marketing officer of the LA Marathon. I left film production. We rebuilt that event. It was days away from bankruptcy. So we rebuilt it basically from scratch around a whole mission of we inspire athletes and connect communities. And what I really learned there was building a business around a mission and how important that is, standing for something.
So cool.
And kind of like I really sort of found my purpose there, and partnering with the president, Russ Pillar, who is still a very close friend of mine. We run together all the time. That kind of blew up in 2011 after the owner, went through a divorce, sold the LA Dodgers.
I remember that.
And I've just worked with a variety of different brands, maybe 50% in sports, 50% tech and healthcare, on telling their stories across different platforms. That could be experiential marketing, that could be events, that could be serving as basically a consultant chief marketing officer, and just kind of getting the whole orchestra playing together, playing the same song. And so
isn't that the challenge? Like,
it is a challenge. And good marketing is all about getting all these channels working together. It's very difficult to do. And so the projects I've worked on recently are like, been doing a lot of work for Canyon Bikes. I love bikes and have ridden bikes since I was in high school. I've worked with a number of different marathons, like Big Sur Marathon, Malibu Marathon, Nike, Red Bull, Sonos, some interesting healthcare brands like a division of Luxottica, eyewear. And I actually like healthcare more than I thought. It sounds boring from the outside, but when you get into it, you think about, I always think my kind of evaluation is, should I work for this client? Am I excited about it? The way I decide is, will my work affect positive change in the world? And that really, cool. I think, over the past 10 years is what I've come to understand is my kind of philosophy, is that I want my work to affect positive change in the world.
That's great. And there's this book that I'm reading right now. Oh, and it's crazy echo in my thing. Are you getting an echo on my thing? No. I'm gonna try it differently. I'm going sans headphones. Technical difficulties at home, folks. We can edit. Maybe we can edit. Play with the edit. That's why it's not live. I hear every single thing I'm saying, like right after I say it.
I see.
Oh, it went away.
Okay, here we go.
I love it. Okay, I'm into this book. I'm right back to my question. Dane, check this part. I'm into this book. We'll make that note for him to do it. Called Second Mountain, and it's by David Brooks, the New York Times op-ed guy.
Yep.
And it's about your first mountain being very society driven, and like you're checking these boxes, like you get the job and you're making a lot of money. Yes. You get the first wife and then she looks a certain part or something like that, right? And you get to the top of that mountain, well, I don't know what you are, some mid-level manager of some sort, and you realize that that wasn't your mountain at all. You were just climbing the wrong one. So it's called Second Mountain, to start finding that second piece. And I'm curious if you could relate to that at all, or if you think you were just climbing two mountains that were just different. You know what I mean?
Right. I think it's a great point. I'm glad you brought it up. I can totally relate to it. Last year, I decided, I'm not sure why, but I decided to graph out my career post-college. So from graduating UCLA, and like on different timelines going across, like what was my job, what was my career interest, if that was different from my job, what was my health, my fitness, my relationship status, etc. I looked at all these things over time. And I realized, like, let's just say from 25 years old to 65 years old, there's about 4 10-year sections. I'm beginning 56, so I'm beginning the fourth quarter of that part of my career right now. And what I realized, and you can start to see trends in each of the, for me, it was 10-year cycles. First 10-year cycle, 25 to 35, was get out there, start a career, start making money, buy a house, build some skills, get married, etc. Okay. The next 10-year cycle, 35 to 45, was do my own thing. So that was like start my own company, kind of figure out what I want to do professionally rather than working for other people. So I was like, do my own thing, build a family, have kids, all that. Third 10-year cycle, 45 to 55 was understand my purpose, which is, as I mentioned before, I want my work to affect positive change in the community. So that was really what I gave a TED talk about 4 years ago, was about my journey into running and discovering my purpose. And so now I believe, as I look forward to the next 10 years, the last quarter of this section is going to be about putting all those things together, kind of synthesizing them. I haven't really gotten all the firing on all 8 cylinders at once. As you know, life is just super challenging. And so, sure, you might find your purpose, but can you make a living doing your purpose? That may or may not align. So, anyway, so now it's about really synthesizing and putting together all my different varied skills. And if I was to look back at the one through line that has connected through, has always been storytelling. Even if I'm building a running event, it's what's the story for the customer? What's the story for the brand partners? What's the story for the cities? How do we make change with that? So I think storytelling is a through line, but definitely there are 4 quarters. So I think I want to read that book now. I'm glad you brought it up. Sounds great. Excited by that.
What are you reading?
I'll tell you what I'm reading. I'm reading 3 books right now, which is kind of often. I have a few books going. I just tartine baking, tartine bakery in San Francisco, because I've been teaching myself to cook sourdough, which is shockingly difficult. And
right there with you.
It's a super hard just to get the starter right, and then it's way harder than I expected. And I've been cooking, I'm into cooking, and it's a whole new world. So, but that book is really kind of a classic of the genre, right? Then I'm in the middle of, almost done with, a collection of short stories by Joan Didion, California writer from the 60s and 70s. These are all articles for I think it was the Atlantic Monthly then, which was what is now the Atlantic. They're fantastic. She's the quintessential California writer. It's all mid 60s. It's just great, and she's such a beautiful writer. Her writing craft and skill. It's mostly nonfiction, magazine stories, but it's amazing. And then the third book that I just started the other day that I've been meaning to read for, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years, is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. He was a psychologist.
Maybe my favorite book. So we're getting into my territory.
30 pages into that. My mom just gave it to me. She had it laying around her house. I was like, I've always wanted to read that. And so, I'm reading, obviously Holocaust survivor, spent years in concentration camps in Nazi Germany, and just really gives you a dose of, I think, perspective during hard times like these. And so that's what I'm reading.
That is wonderful. So that's a new question for me. I've just been asking everybody because I'm still one of the last book readers of my generation, I think. So I'm still.
Book reading is really great. I mean, I think it's underrated these days in the era of social media and everything. But losing yourself in a book is still a noble tradition.
So you mentioned sourdough, which immediately brings me to the times that we're in. Everybody's making bread. But we're also in this really weird space, and I'm going to focus a little bit on the endurance industry today because you and I are so deep into it, and I think a lot of our audience, and they like to know about the business backstory of. And we talked a little bit yesterday about how things will change. And it's not. I don't want to talk about we're going to have more hand sanitizer stations or some of the logistics and the ops and people, and that will change. That doesn't get me up in the morning right now. I'm curious in that it has lit a freaking fire under my team, and I don't know why it's gotten I don't want to say it's positive, but something about this chaos or this thing forced us to look hard at what we were doing, how we were spending our time, how we were connecting to our runners and our potential customers. All of these things that may change. And it was almost just like, it's a do or die right now. I think some people are like, oh, I'm going to take this time to relax and use it to build up for when all the events come back on, at least my contemporaries. And in my mind, I'm like, no way, we've got to go now, because things are going to change so fast, and I don't want to be behind it when whatever it is that is changing. Virtual, digital marketing, more digital content, and all these different pieces. And I'm curious if you've seen this as just like general theme, or if you have thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about this stuff a lot as it relates to endurance events and as it relates to society and culture in general. You know, and I have been talking to a lot of different people. In fact, I've been interviewing people for my blog. In fact, you're next on the blog. You want to be interviewed for the blog?
I want to get to that blog.
You can't back out now. Okay, you can't back out. You're committed. I'm holding you to it.
Yes.
I've been interviewing a lot of people about what kind
of freaking Epstein, like one of my favorite authors right now.
No, he's great. So I think generally speaking, the crisis. So first of all, you know, I just personally feel lucky that my family and close friends have not been impacted with serious illness or death. There's really, I think it's easy to overlook. If you don't know anybody who's been seriously impacted, it's easy to overlook the fact that over 100,000 people have now died because of the virus. Like David Epstein, I called him to talk to him about, do you want to be interviewed on, do you want to, you know, do an interview for my blog? He's like, sure. I'm like, how are you and how's it going? And he said, well, my uncle just died and my wife's grandmother just died from the virus. I was like, oh my gosh, it was really brutal. So, okay, so that aside, okay, looking at sort of business and culture, many things that were going to happen anyway that were in progress that would have happened in the next, you know, 5 years are being accelerated and happening in 3 to 6 months. So if you look at like the death of certain kinds of retail, you know, you and I talking like this on video conference, which we didn't do this before. We might have talked on the phone, but we didn't talk this way. Working from home. You know, both my kids are in college. They're both, as every college is right now, they're all doing school online. Not that it's all going to continue that way, but some of it will. So there are all these trends going on that were happening anyway, and I think one that is exciting that impacts certainly what you do is like all these people are outside running, walking, and riding their bikes, and I think there are a number of reasons for that. I personally am tremendously excited and passionate about this, and I think there are a few things going on. First of all, obviously from a fitness point of view, every gym is closed. You know, yoga studio, etc. And it could take years for those to come back, and like virtually half of them might not come back. So just from a fitness point of view. Secondly, everybody's, you know, working from home, kind of isolated in their houses. People are desperate for community contact. And so I think when you go outside, it's not that you're talking to everybody as you're riding your bike or you're running or walking, but you kind of feel the community out there. You feel included in your city and your community. And then third of all, I think people are rediscovering the simple things in life. And I think a lot of us are reverting back to comfort things like baking, you know, like you brought up, sourdough is one of them. Like it's like flour, salt, and water. It's the most basic. It's just not easy, but there's a simplicity to it. And you could say the same for riding your bike, for running, and for walking and hiking. And I think people are going back to that. And so I think those changes are actually going to be tremendous. The air is cleaner. There are fewer cars on the road. And already certain cities are really adapting to this. Like you see what's going on, like Paris and London, unbelievable, like closing streets permanently, Oakland, closing streets permanently, cars. I'm really sad that LA has not taken more of a leadership role in this, because I think it'll be amazing if and when they do it. And I hope, even just a fraction of the people who have started getting outside, walking, running, and riding their bikes stick with that as we move forward.
Yeah, that's cool. So that, I mean, that poses a huge opportunity for myself in this space. But then there's challenges that we can't get everyone together. So we've got to come up with that symphony of how do we get people moving, stay in the sport of running, walking, cycling, without the opportunity to put them together in large groups for potentially a year plus, in a vaccine-free world or whatever it's going to be. So I always think about, like, we've got to get creative. We've got to get some kind of small groups, or are they virtual opportunities? Are they club runs? Are they really, just, I get excited about that stuff because I like to think of new solutions to how to keep them engaged. And I think,
Yeah.
the Stravas, the Zwifts,
Yeah.
and
One of the things I see happening, like in times of crisis, is people's creativity really gets unleashed. And I think a crisis is an amazing way for people to demonstrate leadership, and there are 1,000 ways to do that. But you really see, obviously, you just look out in the world and you can see examples of really great leadership happening, examples of really terrible leadership happening, and a crisis really kind of brings that out in people. And so for the people who have chosen to lead, and I mean at any level, in their family, in their neighborhood, in their business, in their running community, whatever it is, I think there's so many great opportunities to do that. And I think being creative and coming up with clever solutions to problems is a great way to demonstrate leadership. And there are a lot of interesting things happening that I'm paying attention to. So just like, hot off the presses, I'm been doing a fair amount of work with USA Cycling, kind of helping with a bunch of different gravel races and gravel cycling. And I talked yesterday to Rebecca Rush, and she this whole thing in cycling called Everesting has gotten going, where people try and ride in one day 29,000 vertical feet like Mount Everest. Super hard. I've not done it yet. Probably will never. But Rebecca just got a whole bunch of people going around the world, 11 different countries, 890 athletes, over, I think, 10 million feet of vertical gained, all with this hashtag Giddy Up for Good, benefiting different bike charities. And she just like cooked that up. I thought that was amazing. I think, just what I've seen some athletes doing, like just this morning, our mutual friend, Steph Bruce, who in fact introduced you and I, if you remember. Steph Bruce ran a timed mile and ran a huge PR in the mile, 4:35.
PR.
And so I think that is great when athletes just kind of like take charge and go, I'm going to just do some interesting stuff right now and bring people along for the ride. That's great. I love that.
I do too. It shows creativity, or the potential for creativity at all walks of life, right? Like,
yes, correct.
Event producers, all these things. So I hate to say it when we're in these times, but I love that time. Like, as an event producer myself and a few others, the really good ones are somewhat bored when everything is working out perfectly.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm a producer at heart, so I totally know what you're talking about. And I think for producers, I think the challenge and the fun of work is building something. I think when you're building and you're making something, and I think that's like an elemental human need, because we've been doing that for a million years. And so when everything's kind of going and you're sort of maintaining, it's fine, but it's not as fun as making something.
Yeah, and honestly, that's a great point. I didn't think about it as building. For me, it was like problem solving, but that problem solving is just keeping the building going, like keeping the production on. So you've been doing a cool thing, and you touched on it for just a moment. So you've taken this time, because I don't think you were doing this blogs interview series before COVID-19 or the pandemic, were you? Or was it previous and this is new?
I've blogged since I started blogging at the LA Marathon. I started, that's where I really I had tweeted a little bit with my event when Twitter started, but LA Marathon, I really got on it, and I really built our social media profile and became the most followed marathon in the world on Twitter at that time, which was very early. It was like 2010, 2011. But
That's what I'm thinking about TikTok. I was like, get on the damn TikTok right now. Like, no one else is in the endurance space.
Great.
TikTok.
And
they're like, no. I'm like, oh,
yes. And so, you know, the crisis hits right in the middle of March.
Right.
I was pitching a bunch of work for my marketing agency. Two of the projects that I was pitching just got put on hold. One I got, smaller project, but very interesting. And I had a little bit of work with some other clients, but definitely like my workload with marketing clients, I probably got cut in half. And my income, you know, it's hard. My wife is a TV commercial producer. She was on a shoot in Vancouver, kind of got like the last plane out of town, like March 16th, maybe. And so definitely it's been like hard for us from the point of view of like, you know, making less money, less busy, you know. So but really quickly I went, and I would say I drew upon my experience, like, you know, I have lived through the dot-com meltdown of 2000, 2001. I had a thriving production company. There was a little mini ad recession after that, like 2003. I had to close my company. It cost me a ton of money. I was apoplectic. It was an awful experience, but I survived it. And then 2008, 2009 financial crisis, I was around for that. So like I've kind of been through these, and in the past, when I would, like, particularly 2003, I just wanted to like crawl under my desk and like nothing blew over. I really did not want to communicate, deal with things, deal with the hard questions. And so in this one, I've been much more like eyes open, head up. I'm trying to like see the big trends and the big picture, and like go, you know what? I'm going to do three things right now. Number one, I'm going to take care of myself, okay, and my family, just in terms of like being physically, like keep working out and keep meditating every day. Um, and you know, and number two, I'm going to be really scrappy. Like I'm just going to figure out ways to get by right now, and that includes like financially, whatever it is, and keeping myself busy. So I have had, I'm, you know, very entrepreneurial at heart, and I've had a couple projects that have been on the back burner for the last couple of years, not working on them that much. And I just like, I'm dusting that off, I'm pulling it off the shelf, and I'm getting to work on it. So one is I have a series of sports coaching apps. So we decided with my brother and our golf coach partner with the golf coaching app to dive back into that. My brother's been coding every weekend, spiffed up, added new video, new features, so that we're launching next week. I'm excited about that. And then the second thing is I've always shot a lot of stock footage for Getty Images on and off through the years, stock video. And I have all these cameraman friends from my days in the film business all over the country who are like all overnight out of work. Peter, what are we gonna do? So I'm like, I got it. So I get all these briefs from Getty. They need all these shots, like particularly around the crisis, like people working at home, people cooking at home, homeschooling, home food delivery, whatever. And I got all these cameramen going, sending me shots via Dropbox, and I'm uploading to Getty every week. So those things at least made me feel like productive.
Yeah,
and
that is.
and like I'm busy every day. And then on top of that, I just decided to start blogging and tapping into the interesting stories that interesting friends of mine have. So I just started this series for my blog called Life During Lockdown, and I just started interviewing interesting friends of mine for the blog. From, you mentioned David Epstein, former UCLA gymnastics coach and legend, Valerie Condos Field, my friend who's a guitarist, the lead guitarist in Modest Mouse, Jim Fairchild, runners, Steph Bruce, Alafine Tuliamuk, a lot of pro cyclists, Pete Stetna, Ian Boswell, Ted King, etc. So I've just been just like sharing what people are doing during the lockdown and how, what their point of view is on it. And it's interesting. I just ask them basically I ask basically the same four questions to each person and get wildly different answers from each person. It's super simple.
That's cool. Well, that's every week I see a new one pop up when you put it out on Twitter. I think that's where I catch it first.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how the hell does he know everybody? Like, what do you have a friend? Do you have some kind of friend, a Rolodex? That's how I picture it. On your desk is this friend Rolodex. You check in on people because you're always great about checking in. You check in with me, and we have great conversations, and I really appreciate it. I'm just like, what's going on?
I will say on that, I'll say, JT, that I have really appreciated friends who have checked in with me, friends and family, and I have also tried to reciprocate and just touch base with friends, whomever they are, even if I haven't talked to them in a year and a half, whatever. I just try and check in with my family and friends, and I think it's meaningful, and I hope that trend continues after the crisis.
That's cool. Be a good friend. So that's, yeah, it's a great way to go through this thing is kind of having a plan, like for yourself and how you're gonna
Correct.
I'm gonna shift gears a little bit because one reason you came up, I always wanted to, at some point was gonna have you on this podcast, but we, in our world of pivoting and shifting, we started a virtual event so that it's the Run Local Events presents the California Coast 500. So it's 500 miles from Santa Monica Pier through Big Sur, all Santa Barbara, Big Sur, and then to San Francisco along Highway 1. So we're calling it Run the One. We opened registration yesterday. We've got 500 people plus signed up. I think we're going to get thousands of people that just like need a little bit of motivation and like something that won't just be a virtual event for this Friday or this Saturday where they're going to do a 5K or something like that, where they can repeatedly challenge themselves, inspire themselves. And we want to add like a little of color
does
to
it add up? Like you run, let's say you run 8 miles a day, you got to run whatever 60 days to get to 500. Is that the idea?
Yeah. So you have the summer. So you've got June 8th to September 7th. So about 3 months total. I think it's 5.5 miles if you're going to do the whole 500. But there's different levels. You can hit 100 miles, 200, 300, 400. You're going to get recognized for these different actual medal, a badge, and digital badge and pieces like that.
Got it.
What I wanted to talk about a little bit is I think of you as, Santa Monica. You've worked down there for a long time, I assume, in West LA. It was the first time I met you. It was down at your office down at the old WeWork. And I'm curious if you can give us just like a little sense of the running scene in West LA. Like, I know there's places to run. I don't think people think of LA as a running city, but there's good runs there. Like there's still a community.
Yeah, there's a thriving running community in LA. I mean, there are many running communities. Obviously, LA is so geographically spread out that the communities often are tied to a certain geography. Like, and they're all different running clubs. And so there's, kind of, I would say the more old school running clubs are the ones that train for marathons, like the LA Marathon or others. That'd be like LA Roadrunners, LA Leggers, the Lopers, etc. And they usually have a long run on the weekend, often at the beach in Venice or Santa Monica. I would say like Palisades Park in Santa Monica is the central park of Los Angeles in general. In terms of everybody comes there to do their long runs on the weekend because they're dirt paths, bike paths on the beach. Weather's cool during the summer. Water fountains, bathrooms, etc. So that's kind of like one scene, the kind of more old school traditional running scene. Then you have track workouts Tuesday, Wednesday nights throughout in different places in the city. Then you have over the last 5-6 years, the whole night run crew thing has sprouted up, and there are many of them. Obviously, and I got deeper into this in my TED talk, but like Blacklist LA, they're really based mostly downtown, but there's Koreatown runners, there's Valley runners, DTLA runners, there are Electric Flight Crew on the west side, etc. All these different groups, and that's great. And that's a much younger demo. That's not so much tied to races and events, although there are a lot of people there who do some marathons. I work out sometimes with November Project West LA,
Yeah.
which is really worldwide. You know, we do the morning at 6:30 in the morning at UCLA. Average age is probably 28. It's free. It's just a good kind of general all body workout, running stairs, burpees, you know, sit-ups, another lap kind of workout, but it's great. A lot of hugging going on. And what I see in these groups is it's social first and fitness second. So super social, younger. It's not all about like, you know, hey, what's your mile time? What's your marathon time? It's not so much about that. It's like, yeah, hey, we're all getting fit, but it's really just all about being social and working out. And I think it's been, and I would call it like, honestly, the kind of younger fitness, I would call it like a movement, honestly. And I think the traditional running world was super slow to come around and get to this. And I really dove into it when I did a project for Lululemon around, I did a couple projects for Lululemon around the Olympic trials, the LA Marathon, and I started to dive into these groups and go run with them and just really learn a lot about it. And so I think it's really exciting. They're super online. They live on, you know, Instagram and Snapchat, and I think it's inspiring and it's free and it gets people out and it's young.
Yeah, that's cool. And I think we might have touched on something that, you know, we're talking about this growing trend of runners because the gyms aren't open and that they can't go to their studios and pieces like that. Hopefully, once we're allowed to congregate in groups together, at least small groups, these run crews and clubs or whatever try to make themselves as open and as available and accessible as possible to new runners. I think it's going to be super key to like getting them to not just run by themselves, but then to connect with the community side that is available for them now that they're into running, walking, all those different things.
Right, and I think for the most part, I think these run crews have been pretty welcoming to inexperienced runners. Like, you know, the big Blacklist run is Monday night at 10 o'clock. Okay, Monday night at 10 o'clock downtown LA, and like 300 people show up. It's like being in a 5K, and
So
it's
cool.
free, and it's fun, and it's 4 miles, and it's not, you know, you could run at any pace from people at the front are running 6-minute miles. People at the back are probably running 12-minute miles. And you can run in there anytime. Nobody cares about pace per mile on a lot of those events. And it's super welcoming. I would say, honestly, way more so than going to a typical like track workout, which is like, super
not
hardcore, you know. And I think there's a lot that a lot of sports can learn for this. I've you know, really been working a lot in cycling in the last couple of years. And I mean, there's typically been no more elitist exclusive group than road cyclists. You know, they're really not good at that. And you see in the gravel movement has sprung up. It's super welcoming and super like, fun.
And growing. That's
and growing. And I think like you can equate in cycling, gravel cycling, a little bit with the ultra and trail scene. And the run crews kind of also, and so I love the youth movement in endurance sports that are about fun, that are about community, and that are just about showing up and participating.
Yeah, I love it, and I think that's a great place to put it. You know, a great place to stop it. But like, I'm all about getting people moving. That's been our mission. So you know, our vision is to make as many people on this earth move, inspire them to move as possible. With the idea that if we're moving, we're happy. Essentially, you know, more happy. You know, we're as worried about things like that. So this opportunity to see more people out there and to see more opportunities of ways you can partner, that you don't have to be a serious athlete. And if we can take some of the intimidation factor out of it, then I think it's better for all of us long term. And we could see another kind of like boom out of it.
That's right. And I think it's really what I see working in across all the different sports that I work in is what is working. And even in youth sports, I spent years like coaching soccer, youth sailing, because my son was really into sailing. So I really spent years in like youth sports and different endurance sports. And I think you got to start with fun. So you get
Yeah.
people to show up for the fun and the community, and then you sneak in the fitness on the side. But you don't lead with that,
Yeah.
you know? It's come for the community and stay for the fitness, but you get them hooked on the fun. Like, let's be honest. And that's whether like I mean, I just saw like youth soccer was the worst. I mean, these parents like over competitive and like just take that out of it till they get to like 17 years old. Just don't even worry about it. Just make it fun.
You know,
So,
that's not growing up. I could like play 4 sports. You know, now it feels like everyone just like gets a sport and it's like go.
correct.
Oh,
And so make it fun, man. That's what it's all. And I think that's why November Project has really thrived, because it's a really enjoyable and welcoming experience, you know?
Super cool. All right. I think that's a great place to stop it. Peter, thank you so much for joining us on the Run Local podcast. I loved all the different conversations, learning what you're reading, and then I guess I'm stuck having to do an interview with you on your system.
Yeah, that's right. I will email you the questions.
I'll return the favor.
Okay. Thanks, JT.
Thanks so much, Peter.